The UK's Prime Minister Liz Truss has announced another U-turn in her government's tax cut plan in an effort to reassure financial markets. Truss says that she'll reverse her plan to scrap an increase in corporation tax and admits that the government's mini-budget and had gone faster and further than many had expected. It comes after the PM sacked her Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng and replaced him with the former Health and Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt. Truss said that she was determined to see through her promise to deliver economic growth.
We will get through this storm.
UK Prime Minister Liz Truss ditched her finance minister and made a colossal U-turn on unfunded tax cuts on Friday. It marked a bid to stay in power and survive the market chaos and political turmoil gripping the country.
Is the Prime Minister next, Mr Kwarteng?
Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng said he had resigned at Truss's request after being forced to rush back to London overnight from IMF meetings in Washington. Speaking to a news conference, Truss, who has been in power for little over a month, said she would now allow a key business levy to rise from next year.
But it is clear that parts of our mini-budget went further and faster than markets were expecting. So the way we are delivering our mission right now has to change. We need to act now to reassure the markets of our fiscal discipline. I have therefore decided to keep the increase in corporation tax that was planned by the previous government. This will raise £18 billion per year.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Truss appointed former Foreign and Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt to replace Kwarteng. Kwarteng is the country's shortest-serving Chancellor since 1970, and his successor will be the fourth finance minister in as many months in Britain.
Do you feel like you've been betrayed by the Prime Minister?
Hello, thank you.
Truss's own position is also in jeopardy. She won the Conservative Party leadership last month by promising massive tax cuts and deregulation to try and shock the economy out of years of stagnant growth. But the response from markets was so ferocious that the Bank of England had to intervene to prevent pension funds from being caught up in the chaos, and borrowing and mortgage costs surged. The pound slid against the dollar after Truss spoke Friday, trading 1.2% lower, and two-year British government bonds turned negative.
Well, I am determined to deliver on what I set out.
Kwarteng and Truss have been under mounting pressure to reverse their mini-budget after polls showed support for the Conservative Party had collapsed. Many colleagues have been seeking ways to force them out of office.
Mr. Speaker.
Truss now runs the risk of bringing the government down if she cannot find a palatable package of public spending cuts and tax rises that can appease investors and get through any parliamentary votes in the House of Commons.
For some reaction, we're now joined by London-based journalist John Ofe-Ansah, who is the founder and publisher of Africa Briefing, a Pan-African news magazine which is based in London. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Always good to talk to you. And I want to step back a little bit because if I remember correctly, the Conservative leadership race was all about financial discipline. And Sunak Rishi was basically saying what is happening now about the tax cuts.
Yes, the Conservative Party, prides itself on the prudent management of the nation's office. It claims that to be its hallmark. So Liz Truss, when she was campaigning, promised, to cut taxes if she was elected or when she was elected. I mean, we all recall during the days of Margaret Thatcher, she also won elections, on the promise of cutting taxes, which she did. The average British voter usually votes from his pockets. You cut taxes, that means more money in his extra money in his pocket, therefore he will vote for you. But in this Truss's case, what riled the country, or even his own fellow members of the Conservative Party, was that she cuts she decided to cut the top rate of income tax, by 5p. That is the 45p. Currently, the top earners, pay 45p in the pound as start of 45% tax, and then awarded just 1%. That's 1p, 1 pence in the pound to the low income earners, right? And this did not go down well with her party. Again, Rishi Sunak, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer and her opponent in the race to become leader, also proposed increasing the corporation tax from the current 19% to 25% from next April. And Liz Truss also campaigned on the promise that she would reverse that planned increase. Okay, and when she won, she came into office a little over a month ago. The markets did not react well. Okay, so she was forced to go back, make a U-turn on her proposed reduction of the top rate of income tax from 45 to 40%. The Bank of England, the central bank, had to step in, and buy government bonds because the markets were reacting badly to her policies. Okay, so she reversed that and still maintained that she would keep her promise to reverse the planned increase in the corporation tax. And again, the market has reacted badly. The Bank of England raised interest rates. Mortgage payers are suffering now. Mortgage payers are paying an average of £200 or £300 more per month on their mortgage. And when this happens, it does not adhere the government, the ruling party, to the electorate. And right now, the opinion polls suggest that if there were elections tomorrow, the opposition Labour Party will win by a landslide because the Labour Party is 30% take points ahead of the Conservatives. Hence, the debacle Liz Truss finds herself in now. So she had no choice but to dismiss Kwasi Kwarteng, her longtime friend and fellow, an ally, a political ally, and this tells you that expediency is the name of the game in politics.
Yeah. Was he a sacrificial lamb that was required to try and appease the markets? Because he would have been following orders, I guess, because she had made promises.
Yes, they were allies. Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss were allies. Again, personally, they are very good friends. They live not far from each other on the same street in South London. So that tells you how close they are. And these policies, economic policies, were devised by the two of them, right? So for political expediency, something had to give, and Kwasi Kwarteng had to go. So in other words, he has become a sacrificial lamb.
Just how much at risk is Liz Truss? Could a vote of no confidence by her own party be a real possibility?
According to the conservative parliamentary rules, there can be no vote of confidence against the Prime Minister in the first 12 months of their office. So between now and the next 12 months, the parliamentary Conservative Party cannot move for a motion of no confidence. But that does not spare her. Don't forget that Liz Truss was elected by the rank and file Conservative Party members and not her fellow parliamentarians, right? When the parliamentarians were voting for a leader of the Conservative Party, it was Rishi Sunak who won, right? But Rishi Sunak lost because the rank and file members of the Conservative Party preferred Liz Truss. Okay, and right now there are moves. I mean, she's not popular. She's losing the trust and the confidence of her fellow parliamentarians. So analysts believe that she'll be lucky, to last, till the end of the year. Some have been saying that, by within a week she might be gone, but the jury is out of that.
So there might be a lot of people suffering buyer's remorse now. What does that mean for someone like Sunak? Because he will feel that I warned you and you voted against me, and that which I predicted has come to pass.
Yeah, I bet you Rishi Sunak feels very, very vindicated now. Already, some members of parliament, Conservative members of parliament, are trying to line up Rishi Sunak and one of the current cabinet ministers, Penny Mordaunt, who also contested for the party leadership. I tried to line them up to replace Liz Truss.
All right. So the public in general, Labour will always have something to say, but the public in general, how are they feeling about what's playing out?
Well, let's remember that Liz Truss was not voted, didn't come to office through a general election. She came to office by a very narrow means. That means she went through the process of elimination, by her fellow Conservative Party parliamentarians, right? And then she was voted into office by members of the Conservative Party, the rank and file members of the Conservative Party. She's not coming through the general election. So for all I know, the majority of British people do not, minority not want her to be in office. And like I said earlier on, if there was a general election tomorrow, I bet you the Labour Party would win.
And what is Labour saying? They must be having a field day.
Yes, in fact, the Labour Party leader, Keir Starmer, is already putting things in place to contest a general election. I mean, the Labour Party, from what I gather, Labour Party believe there might be general election sooner rather than later. So he's putting the necessary machinery in place, to fight, any imminent general election. All
right. So it's hard to imagine, but Jeremy Hunt, tell us about him. Is it someone that can take a position like the Chancellor of the Exchequer? It seems almost like a stopgap, maybe. I don't know. I don't know much about him.
Well, Jeremy Hunt, he's number one. He's one of the richest members of government. He's a millionaire in his own right, and he used to be the Minister for Health, that is the Secretary for Health. And during his tenure as the Secretary for Health, I mean, he acquitted himself very, very well. And later on, he became the Foreign Minister, that's the Foreign Secretary, until he stepped down, and also contested the leadership elections, which Liz Truss won. So she has some pedigree. And until his appointment today, he was the chairman of the Parliamentary Health Select Committee. So he kept himself in the limelight, even though he was a backbencher. But look, his economic policies, economic philosophy is not very different from Liz Truss's. But in view of the current climate, I believe he will try to maybe change slightly from what Liz Truss is trying to impose on the country.
But it's interesting, he supported Rishi Sunak, didn't he, for the party leadership. So one then wonders what the move is about.
Well, like I said, politics, the name of the game in politics, is expediency. So, I mean, he would do, I mean, look, you don't turn down, to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK is not a small position. It's a powerful, prestigious position, and you don't turn it down when it is when it is offered to you. And I believe he will try and do his best, to number one, to study the market. Number one, to infuse some confidence in this Truss's government.
All right, and that's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much. Always good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, that's London-based journalist Ofe Ansah, John Ofe Ansah, speaking to us about dramatic events that are taking place in the UK. The Finance Minister, Kwasi Kwarteng, has been fired, and that means his tenure, I think, is the shortest tenure of a Finance Minister in the history of the Exchequer in the UK. Long-time ally of Liz Truss, and her popularity is sinking. Calls for a general election. She says it's not happening before 2024, but the pressure is mounting.